We're 3 weeks into the season already. We've got some 40-year-old quarterbacks still hanging around. You got to wonder how much longer. Guys like Aaron Rodgers, Joe Flacco, and Russell Wilson's there. I mean, these guys just look absolutely washed.
Wait. If these guys are washed at 40, what does that make us?
Yeah, let's not think about that. All right, let's think about your lineups for week 4. Quarterback, tight ends. Let's figure out who you should start and who you should sit. Good news, there's some quarterbacks and tight ends you don't have to think about. The must-starts for this week are Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, and Jaden Daniels if he plays. And then at tight end, Brock Bowers, Trey McBride. Before we start with the first matchup, I have a surprising stat for you. Only 70% of our viewers are subscribed. That means there are plenty of you who are watching who have yet to hit that subscribe button. We definitely appreciate if you do it. If you appreciate what we're trying to do to help you win in fantasy, go ahead and click that button. We're on the road to 100K. Help us get there. First game on the slate is the Thursday night matchup between the Seahawks and the Cardinals. All right, so let's talk Seattle. They're off to a pretty good start, and that includes Sam Darnold. You know, it doesn't look like it was the Minnesota system that made him. He is looking sharp, but exactly how sharp do you think he'll be in this road game?
Yeah, I don't feel nearly as good about him as I did last week. The Cardinals, they are allowing the 5th highest pass rate over expectation, but Seattle 30th as far as pass rate over expectation. This just feels like a slow game with not a ton of fantasy goodness, but he's been pretty good, so I think you could stream him, but that's as high as I can go this week.
We know the Cardinals secondary was banged up last week. We'll see if they get better, but even still, they didn't give up a huge game to the Niners through the air. This feels like a low-scoring Thursday night game, right? One of those typical Thursday night matchups. I think Darnold will be fine, but he's not going to be your best option. So to that end, what does that make Kyler Murray? It is at home, but facing the Seattle defense, which has been pretty stout.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is like this is now 3 straight games where he's run for over 30 yards, and maybe with James Conner out, he continues to run like that. But again, just said, this is not a game where I feel like there's going to be a lot of scoring, a lot of passing. So I'm just going to put Kyler as a streamer as well this week.
Well, I'm never crazy about Kyler. I don't want him in lineups this week. If he's my only option at quarterback, the Seattle defense has been legit. Again, it's early. I know they haven't had like the toughest schedule, but they've got more interceptions than touchdowns allowed to quarterbacks so far this season. 5 picks, only 4 TDs allowed. And Kyler Murray, look, losing James Conner is not going to help that offense. And there's really not much besides Trey McBride that he's got there. I'm not feeling it for Kyler. I think he is super flex only. Now, speaking of those experienced quarterbacks here, we got the Vikings at the Steelers. Let's start in Minnesota. It is Carson Wentz. Hey, he acquitted himself pretty well in his first start as a Viking. And how about that? TJ Hawkinson showed up. So how do you think these guys do? Now, they are on the road against the Steelers.
Steelers, a good matchup for quarterbacks, absolutely. But, man, these are 2 of the slowest teams. And again, with this Vikings defense, like, the Steelers going to force them to throw a lot. But it is a good spot for Carson Wentz. So I'm going to say super flex, but I can't put him higher than that. And, look, maybe Hawk did just need Carson Wentz. The Steelers are a great matchup for tight ends. We just saw Hunter Henry annihilate this defense. But Addison is back, so I can't go too crazy here. But I'm going to say Hawk is solid.
Yeah, glad we can move Hawk back up to the solid tier here. We just needed a legit quarterback after all. And look, Carson Wentz did fine. Let's not go crazy here. Superflex, he is fine. He should be adequate. It's interesting. The Steelers defense, they did get better last week, but it was really, you feel like it was the Patriots just kind of giving them the game. Those turnovers weren't really all that forced. So I don't feel like this is a tough matchup anyways. And the Steelers somehow are among the leaders in missed tackles on defense. You got to wonder if that's going to clean up at some point. But still, regardless, Wentz, super flex only. And how about Aaron Rodgers here? All right, he's still hanging around. He's going to be around all season. Let's face it, we can't get rid of him. Against his Vikings defense, I mean, come on.
Yeah, this is looking like a defense we want to stay away from when it comes to passing. And Aaron Rodgers is looking like a quarterback I want to stay away from. No chance. I don't care what the format is. And then as far as the tight ends here, if you want to stream Jonnu Smith, you can. He's sort of involved, but not one of my favorite streamers and no chance to move.
So agree, Jonnu Smith. I mean, we can just keep him in that streaming territory. He'll hang around there for a while just because, Art Smith loves him. No love for Aaron Rodgers in fantasy against this Vikings defense that pressures the quarterback. We're going to look back as the season goes on and that week one outburst, just so he could stick it to his former team, the Jets. He basically gave everything he had left in the tank there in week one. This guy has not topped 203 yards over the last 2 games, so definitely sitting Rodgers and definitely taking the lower on underdog here. And Rodgers right now, his line is 208.5 yards. Take the lower. He isn't hitting that mark. You get this along with a Kyler Murray gimme if you use code ENDGAME and check out as a new customer for the very first time. Don't forget, you also get $50 in bonus funds added to your account just for playing $5 as soon as you sign up. All right, now let's talk about the Commanders at the Falcons here. Not sure whether JD is going to give it a go or not, so it could be Daniels. If you got Daniels in your lineup, you do start him. But if it's Marcus Mariota, I mean, you can't feel too bad, honestly. He looked pretty good last week, and Zach Ertz did something again.
Hey, he looked pretty good. And, I was a little nervous about his rushing because he had that Achilles tendonitis in training camp, but he was fine. Ran for 40 yards and a touchdown. I think Marcus Mariota, you can't get carried away here. I mean, the Falcons are a pretty good defense here, so I'll say super flex, but he does at least give you that rushing upside. And look, Zach Ertz, I was going to call him a solid start last week, and then it was like, oh, Jaden Daniels might not play, so I backed him down to a streamer. Now, forget that. He was solid almost every game last year. He's been solid pretty much every game this year. He's solid.
Yeah, Ertz to me, again, I wish there was a little more upside here. I'll say this, Terry McLaurin's been banged up. If he's out, I'm definitely moving Ertz up to that solid tier. He's always at least a high-end streamer. Now, as far as Mariota, he looked good, sure, but again, what if McLaurin's not in the lineup? It's going to hurt. And I do feel like this is kind of a get-right game, not just for the Falcons offensively, which is where they really need it, but also their defense. They're back at home. It is still a good squad that pressures the quarterback, so I can't put Mariota as more than a super flex. So speaking of get right, I mean, Michael Penix Jr., he needs to do something here, or otherwise, I don't know. Are the fans going to be asking for Kirk Cousins back at this point?
I mean, maybe, who knows? Could be a reversal from last year, I guess, but man, you can't feel good. This is a good spot against Commanders, not a tough secondary at all, but I can't do it. I can't do it this week. I understand if you're in Superflex, you want to do it. I totally understand, but it's been so bad the last 2 weeks. There is no way I could start him. And Kyle Pitts, man, that should have been a great game last week, but Michael Penix, when your quarterback is that bad, I don't care who you are, you can't have a great game. Kyle Pitts is just a streamer right now.
Well, I already said it. I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt here because, Penix was great week one. I'm like, where did that go? And, last week, there's no excuse. Week two, he actually wasn't bad. The numbers weren't great for fantasy. But remember, they were facing the Vikings who didn't score basically at all. They didn't need to pass the ball. He really didn't need to do anything. So I don't consider that a bad game for him. Back at home, I think they'll get it right. I still think he's a good quarterback. Now, that said, again, super flexes as far as I'll go, but I don't think he's an outright bench just yet.
Do you want to get advice from Pierre and myself at the tip of your fingertips? Start, sit, waiver wire, trades, and more? Well, you can do all of this and more on our new app, Draft Lane. We have the ability to view your roster, waivers, and more to give you the right feedback to make the perfect choice. Download Draft Lane from the App Store or Google Play, or use these handy QR codes. And first-time users can use code ENDGAME to get 10 free credits and get your questions answered today.
All right, Chargers at the Giants. Yeah, Justin Herbert has been good enough. If you got him, you don't have to question it. You start him. Now, we do have a change for the G-Men. That's right. Didn't take very long. Russ is out. Jackson Dart is in. Who could have seen this coming? All right, so as far as Dart goes, let's be real. Do you expect anything different in this Giants offense? Obviously, a very different type of quarterback, and I don't just mean age, but do you actually expect different results?
Man, I sure hope so. I mean, I don't expect it to be as bad as it was against the Chiefs. I really, really hope not. But at the same time, Chargers are a good defense. He's making his first NFL start. This feels very, very risky to me. I'm just going to sit Jackson Dart this week, even in Superflex, and see how he looks.
Yeah, not a great place. It's a home game, but still, Chargers defense is a rough one. I'm going to keep him in the super flex range kind of for the same reasons that I'll keep some of these other fringe quarterbacks over some of the other, statuesque pocket passers. Dart can run. He probably will run. I think that's one element he can bring. Not that Russ can't scramble here and there, but it's not the same. So I feel like they're going to open it up for Jackson Dart. I mean, Russell Wilson, aside from that one ridiculous outlier of a game that, we just saw in week 2, I mean, he was just so conservative with passing the ball. So I think Dart at least gives you something, on the ground. Super flex if you need it. All right, well, this one's not really much better here. We got the Titans at the Texans. Like, Cam Ward will be a great quarterback one day. He's not exactly been great for fantasy at all. And I will say the tight end Chigakonkwo at least hanging on to relevance here, right?
Honestly, in this entire matchup of all the players we're going to talk about, Chig's the only one I feel good about. Like, if you want to stream Chig, you can. He doesn't have a huge ceiling, but he at least gives you a floor for a tight end. Cam Ward, no chance. Like, on the road against the Texans, a good defense, not looking good. I mean, it started the game with a pick 6. Like, brutal. No thanks.
Yeah, on the road against Houston, Ward is just a complete sit. And I did mention Okonkwo. I think he'll be one of my favorite lesser-owned streamers at tight end. I mean, of course, there's others that have more upside, but realistically, you're in a competitive league, he might be the best you got. Now on the Houston side, like CJ Stroud hasn't been better than Cam Ward. He hasn't been better than almost any quarterback. Can you even consider starting him anywhere?
I don't think you can. I mean, he hasn't topped 15 fantasy points this year, and if it wasn't for an absolute blown coverage, we're like, how do you not cover Nico Collins, like the best wide receiver on the field? He would have had another absolutely horrendous game last week. There's no way you can start CJ Stroud in any format, and I'm not starting Dalton Schultz either.
I legitimately don't even know if he's like a buy low in Dynasty at this point. I mean, we were worried that this guy was just that rookie season was a complete outlier. Was it a fluke? I don't know what happened, but serious concerns here. Don't start him. Don't roster him in redraft. Dalton Schultz, I think, could be a streamer just because they don't have a lot else to throw to, and the Titans defense is pretty bad. But man, barely a streamer. All right, now we got Eagles, Bucs. Jalen Hurts must start. Dallas Goedert is what this week?
Dallas Goedert is what Dallas Goedert is. He's always a solid streaming option.
Yeah, pretty much a guy who could score a touchdown or not do much. Yeah, he's a streamer. Now the Tampa side, it's going to be interesting to see here what goes on. We talked about this in the wide receiver video. A lot of questions. Is Evans going to be good to go? Godwin coming back? Who knows? Still got issues on the offensive line as well. So how are you treating Baker Mayfield this week?
Yeah, you can't feel as good as you normally do about Baker Mayfield, but he does run a little bit. I feel like they are going to have to throw the ball a lot. He's still got Egbuka. Guess he still has Kate Otten if he needs him. So I'm going to say Baker Mayfield's solid, but risky solid, like very low end of the solid. And then, look, if Evans is out, Godwin doesn't play, I think Kate Otten might actually be streamable this week.
Oh, man, I don't know if I can go there with Kate Otten. I still think you sit him just because I'm worried about this Eagles defense. I'm worried about this whole offense. Still those injuries, like you said. I know maybe Wirfs is playing, but they still have other injuries. Bucky Irving isn't looking great as far as his efficiency goes. There's too many variables here. I know usually Mayfield is just kind of like a solid set and forget at the very least, but I'm worried enough I'm going to drop him down to super flex this week. All right, now Panthers at Patriots. How is it that Carolina won big last week, and yet Bryce Young still doesn't look like anybody you want in your fantasy lineup? I mean, what's even going on here?
Probably better when the Panthers aren't up big, because then they're just throwing the ball a ton in the second half, better for his fantasy value. But I'll say still super flex here, but barely super flex. Like at that line where I'd be like, maybe I would consider like high-end wide receivers or running backs over him, but for the most part, probably still putting him into super flex.
Yeah, I think he hangs around the super flex ranges because he does run a little bit, especially near the goal line, could run in a touchdown. It's not a great matchup. It's on the road. Yeah, I mean, this offense, I'm starting to worry, starting to wonder. And then as far as the Patriots offense, there's some concerns as well, too. Look, Drake May himself has been pretty good, but is there enough here?
I think there's enough. You look at it, Panthers allowing the 10th highest pass rate over expectation. The Patriots are throwing at the 6th highest pass rate over expectation. They can't run the ball. They don't trust their running backs. It's not a terrible matchup against the Panthers. I think Drake May is solid. And look, Hunter Henry, I mean, big week 1, terrible week 2, big week 3. I just feel like at this point, you just have to leave him in your lineup and take whatever he gives you. He's solid.
Yeah, still love it. Funny that the only week Hunter Henry didn't go off was week 2, but yeah, he's got to be solid here. Definitely involved. The receivers haven't been as much. You don't know what you're getting on a weekly basis from this New England offense. So I will say Drake May, just don't feel like he's going to have to pass a ton this week. That's why I'm going to say he's streamable, and that's it. All right, now the Saints at the Bills. All right, hopefully you got Josh Allen. You don't have to think about the quarterback position. If you do have to think about quarterback, do you consider Spencer Rattler? And then Juwan Johnson, I mean, look, this guy's keep moving up in terms of not only his involvement in this offense, but his fantasy relevance.
Well, Juwan Johnson, it's a strong start. I mean, if you got Juwan Johnson, you just leave him locked in. He's got an insanely high floor, can catch a touchdown. I mean, this guy is looking, I can't even say like the best tight end pick in fantasy because nobody picked this guy, like the best waiver wire tight end pickup in fantasy this year. Spencer Rattler, no. This guy has 110 pass attempts, and they're like the emptiest pass attempts I've ever seen. Like on the road in Buffalo, no, I'm not doing this.
Well, look, if you're in a super flex or 2 quarterback format, you can put Rattler in there because garbage time still counts, doesn't it? They're going to have to pass the ball a lot here, I think, against Buffalo, which is not a shutdown defense. And then Juwan Johnson could be the beneficiary here. You know what? You're right. I mean, he's been so involved here. As far as tight ends go, yeah, he should just be a strong start. Oh, Buffalo's tight end, Dalton Kincaid. Now all of a sudden, I mean, maybe this is the breakout season for him.
Who would have thought this could be the breakout year for Dalton Kincaid? Yeah, look, you got to feel good about Dalton Kincaid if you've got him. Not scared of the Saints defense, that's for sure. I mean, I talked about Juwan Johnson. Like Juwan Johnson, Hunter Henry, Dalton Kincaid, proving why you don't need to take tight end early. It happens every single year. He's solid.
When I say breakout, I don't feel like Kincaid's going to have like a George Kittle type season in him. Like he's not the Brock Bowers of this season. There's just not enough targets for him in this offense. But that said, even though his snap share and his route percentage isn't as high as you'd like for, let's say, a TE1 in fantasy, his target share is still there. So I think he's still solid. All right, now let's talk about the Browns at the Lions. And, well, it still is Joe Flacco for Cleveland, apparently, for reasons. And then they do have a pair of tight ends that are still frustrating. David Njoku or Harold Fannin. What do you make of this situation?
I've said pretty much all season, not starting Joe Flacco. Not going to start Joe Flacco now on the road in Detroit. I will say I think Njoku's streamable. He has pulled away from Fannin the last couple weeks. Like his targets and snaps and routes are going up. Fannin's is kind of going down. I think Fannin back to being a sit.
Yeah, Joe Flacco, obviously no reason to consider him. Enough said. I'm not considering these tight ends at all because, look, David Njoku, even if he is somewhat involved, there's just not enough here. There is almost no upside. Maybe it changes at some point, but right now I don't see that happening. He hasn't topped 40 yards in a game this season, and he hasn't scored a touchdown. I need more. And then Harold Fannin is starting to look like he might have been one of those week 1 waiver wire fab dumps. By that, I mean you dumped your money and you burned it, and you're not getting anything out of it. This guy's reception totals have gone down every week from 7 to 5 to 3. I can't consider starting him either. Now on the Detroit side, you got to be feeling pretty solid about this offense, especially what they did to Baltimore last week. Although this Browns defense is the real deal.
Yeah, Browns defense is the real deal. It's a little frustrating Goff didn't have a huge game because Monty scored twice, Gibbs scored twice, but he still was really good. But I am a little nervous here. It is the Browns. This is a much better defense, but they are at home. I'm going to say Goff this week, just a streamer, but a very good streamer. And then Sam Laporta. This guy's just solid every week. Like if you got Laporta, he's just in your lineup.
Laporta's solid. You can keep him in there if you got him, no worries. Yeah, Goff, it's interesting because definitely a good defense, but at the same time, as we talked about, they just clamp down on the run. They might force the Lions to pass it, but at the same time, how exactly are they going to pass it? You know, how much is the volume going to be there? It's just going to be a low-scoring game. So I think Goff is streamable, and, he should be good enough. The Jaguars at the 49ers this week. Is Trevor Lawrence good enough to make it on any of your fantasy squads? And then what about Brenton Strange?
Nah, Trevor Lawrence on the road against the 49ers. I mean, what are we getting here from this guy? Like, this has been horrible. This offense has been horrible. And 49ers defense looks legit. Even without Nick Bosa, I think they're still going to be really good. Not starting Trevor Lawrence. Brenton Strange, you can stream him. He's not my favorite streamer this week, that is for sure. But if you need to, you can.
Yeah, Strange will always kind of be there. I feel like, most of the time he gets enough targets. He is relevant. Not this week. Like, I'm not feeling it with T-Law. Not that I usually am. But yeah, this could be another rough game. They're still working things through in this offense. And Trevor Lawrence, look, he just may not be a great fit for Liam Cohen. But as of right now, I know he's not fitting in any of my fantasy lineups. Now for the 49ers, it sounds like there's a good possibility that Brock Purdy is back in the fold for week 4. If not, Mac Jones will be the guy again. So either way, how do you feel about this situation?
Well, I'll say if it's Purdy, I'm going to say solid start. This is not a great spot. I think the Jags D is being underrated right now. They've actually been pretty good this year, but he's got weapons. He's Brock Purdy. I think he's still solid. If it's Mac Jones again against this defense we saw last week when he's not playing the Saints, he's okay, but he's not great. Superflex only.
I don't feel like there's a big difference between those two. I'm just going to throw them both in the streaming tier. Shouldn't be a big game, but it shouldn't be a bad game for either one. I mean, do we know if Jawan Jennings is playing or not? Don't know. George Kittle is still missing. So, I feel like both are streamable. Colts taking on the Rams in week 4. Talk Danny Dimes. All right. Daniel Jones has been still very solid at the Rams. Do you have any concerns here for him? And then what about the tight end Tyler Warren?
I don't really have any concerns. I know the Rams do have a good pass rush, and there's always a chance like last week JT just does all the heavy lifting and Daniel Jones doesn't have a big game, but he still runs. He gets chances near the goal line. I think he's still solid this week, maybe lower end solid. And I know Tyler Warren did not have a big game last week, but come on. You gotta give. Not everybody's gonna go off every game every week. Don't panic here. He's still a strong start.
Yeah, well, Tyler Warren is pretty much a set and forget for me. I think he's a strong start regardless of matchup here. Now, as far as Daniel Jones, I do think he could have some issues with the pass rush here. The Rams do get to the quarterback. I know he didn't have too many problems against Denver, but still, I think teams are starting to catch on. Hey, maybe we have to defend the pass a little bit more. Maybe Daniel Jones is legit. So I think he's a high-end streamer. Pretty much solid, though. He's pretty much as close as you can get. And as far as the Rams go, I mean, no tight end to talk about, but there's Matthew Stafford still.
Matthew Stafford just going to live in that super flex tier. I mean, sometimes he'll have, 2 touchdown, 3 touchdown games randomly, but yeah, super flex tier here. Colts defense, I think another one of these defenses that might be better than people think, but it's Stafford. He's good enough for super flex.
That's it. I mean, the upside is not tremendous. There's no rushing upside here. Matchup is fine. Stafford is fine in a super flex league. All right, Bears at Raiders. Is this the version of the Bears that we're going to get from now on, or was that just the Dallas defense? I'll let you go first. Caleb Williams, expectations now for week 4.
Not 4 touchdowns again, I'll tell you that right now. I mean, look, the Raiders are not an elite defense, but they're not as bad as the Cowboys either. But it's still, Caleb's actually been good this year. In every game for fantasy, he's been good. I think he's still solid in this matchup. And then looks like we might not have Colston Loveland this week. Cole Kmet did score, but I'm not really feeling too excited about Cole Kmet. Barely a streamer.
I was optimistic about the Bears and Caleb Williams in the preseason. Not feeling great until this week. I think it was more about the defense than the offense. I still think they've got some work to do here. Now, that said, the Raiders defense, not scary. I'll say Caleb Williams to me is a high-end streamer, but I'm not ready to be fully bought in just yet. And then as far as Cole Kmet, look, he does get somewhat interesting if Loveland is out because of that injury, but still, come on, you can do better at tight end. Also got to ask whether Geno Smith's output was a fluke, 3 touchdowns, but let's face it, this was basically garbage time for him. Are you buying into him, and do you think that the Bears defense can make him look much better?
Yeah, it's a good Good matchup here against the Bears. I know Dak didn't come through, but he lost CeeDee Lamb for pretty much the entire game last week. And look, you take out the week 2 matchup against the Chargers, tough defense. Geno Smith has actually been pretty good in the other 2 games. I'm not going to say like a solid start here. That's crazy, but I think he's at least streamable.
I'm going to throw him down in the super flex range. I'm going to say the same thing I said with Caleb. I feel like this was just a result of the defense and the game script. Look, out of the 3 games so far this season, Geno Smith, 35%, over a third of his production yardage-wise has come just in the fourth quarter. A lot of that, including 2 of his 4 touchdowns, have been in the fourth quarter. This is not a dynamic offense as of right now. That offensive line looks horrible. I know the Bears defense is horrible as well. I get that, but still, I feel like Geno Smith here is only a super flex start. All right, now Ravens at Chiefs. Man, it feels like it was not that long ago that every quarterback and tight end in this matchup was a must start, but we're not there anymore except for Lamar Jackson. All right, what about Mark Andrews? Naturally, when everybody gave up on him, he goes off in week 3. What does he do as an encore in week 4?
Well, you know how this works. Like, everybody's like, okay, we're done with Mark Andrews. He goes off. Now everybody's like, you got to start Mark Andrews, and he's probably going to bust. But, I mean, it's Mark Andrews. We know he's got this potential. What are we going to get? You just never know. I'll say a streamer, a high-end streamer. Good luck this week.
That's why you can't completely ever count out a guy like that, but you also can't count on him. Not a great matchup. Risky streamer, basically. And I don't even know if Isaiah Likely is going to come back yet, but I know it doesn't matter. You shouldn't be starting him. Now, do you want to still start either Pat Mahomes or Travis Kelce? And that's a serious question, because the more I see this Chiefs offense, the more I think, like, it's over.
I'm not ready to say it's over yet. I think it's a little too drastic, but I certainly do not want to start Travis Kelce. I didn't want to start Travis Kelce last week. It looks like this guy is better at fighting his coach than he is at playing tight end these days. I'll still put him in the streaming tier, but honestly, I don't want to put this guy in my lineup. I still think Mahomes is solid. I know it wasn't a great game last week, but had Tyquan Thornton caught that first touchdown pass, or had he that one where he caught it at the 1, had he gone into the end zone, it would have been a pretty good game for Patrick Mahomes still. I still think he's got potential. Worthy might play. I think he's still solid.
I can't go there. I mean, just not enough. Look, maybe when Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy are both in the fold, maybe that changes things. So far, 3 games, right? Pat Mahomes is averaging 223 yards, and he has a total of 3 touchdowns in 3 games. Look, if he didn't scramble for, rushing touchdown here and there, he would have almost no fantasy value. Not exaggerating. I think he's a super flex start this week. That's where I'm going to put him. And then same thing with Travis Kelce. He's just a streamer. All right, Packers at Cowboys. It's also a team where you got good offenses that are missing key parts. We know this. Let's start with Jordan Love, Tucker Kraft in Green Bay. This is as tasty of a matchup as you can get.
Yeah, see how you can sit these guys. I know they're both coming off of down games, but look, Tucker Kraft looked fine. He had 3 catches. He was out there running routes. It just didn't happen. And same with Jordan Love. It was a tough matchup against the Browns. It just didn't happen. This is as easy as it gets. Jordan Love has to be solid this week. Tucker Kraft has to be a strong start.
Tucker Kraft, definitely a strong start. Again, we've said it enough, and you've seen it enough. This Dallas Cowboy defense looks like the worst in the NFL as of right now, but especially the pass defense. And so Jordan Love is going to be one of my favorite solid picks of the week. And again, I mean, compare it. If you're in a shallower league, maybe you do have this choice. If Love is out there, and I bet you a lot of teams dropped Jordan Love after the way he looked against Cleveland. This is the complete other end of the spectrum here, this matchup. Give me Jordan Love over guys like Pat Mahomes this week. Now, I wish I could feel as optimistic about Dak Prescott, but you can't with CeeDee Lamb out definitely this week, and it looks like it might be multiple weeks. And this is a tough Packers defense. But you should definitely feel good about Jake Ferguson. I mean, he basically is like the CeeDee Lamb replacement in this offense.
Yeah, the usage is absolutely elite for Ferguson, even though for some reason this guy cannot find the end zone. It almost doesn't even matter. I mean, solid start only because it's a tough matchup against the Packers here, but still very solid. Dak, I have to drop him down to Superflex, and that might even be a little generous here because this is a tough matchup. No CD. I'm not sure Pickens can step up the way they need him to. We'll see. But Dak, he still throws enough super flex.
Yeah, you definitely have to be worried about Dak. Can only be a super flex option against this Packers D. Jake Ferguson, he might be a strong option if he ever found the end zone, and maybe he will at some point. Can't guarantee it'll be this week, but man, 13 catches. He's got 26 targets just over the last 2 games, and CeeDee Lamb actually played most of those last 2 games. And so, yeah, again, if he ever found the end zone, this guy might even be a must start. And then the first of 2 Monday night games, for some reason. All right, we got the Jets and the Dolphins here. We know the situation in New York. Tyrod Taylor filled in for Justin Fields last week. Still not clear what's going to go on for week 4. So either way, how do you handle this situation?
Well, I think if Fields plays, he's a high-end streamer for me. I mean, it's the Dolphins. This guy has incredible rushing upside. I know week 2, the last time we saw Fields, it was terrible, but this is the Dolphins, high-end streamer. If it's Tyrod Taylor again, he's at least worth a start in Superflex because, again, it is the Dolphins.
And because of that, I'm going to go, if Fields plays, high-end solid. Again, this is not anything that's going to limit him physically, right? It wasn't like an ankle injury or something. If he clears the protocol, he's good to go. It's the Dolphins. Remember week 1, Justin Fields. The reality should be somewhere in between week 1 and week 2. That's good enough for my fantasy team. I would start him if he's out there. I can't say the same thing for Tua or anybody in this Dolphins passing offense for sure, but the Jets defense hasn't exactly been shutting teams down.
This defense hasn't been shutting teams down, but this offense is so... I know he had 2 touchdowns last week, but how many yards did he have? If he doesn't throw for 2 touchdowns, you're getting almost nothing here. I probably should say he's fine in Superflex. Okay, fine. Superflex... I've talked about guys like Bryce Young. He can't be worse than Bryce Young. So Superflex, I guess he's okay.
Yeah, exactly. There are worse options, I guess, is the best way to put it here. And this Jets defense has been very disappointing so far. Superflex, but not a very exciting option here. And then finally, we have the Bengals at the Broncos. I'm not sure if it could possibly be worse than what we saw from Cincinnati last week. So, I guess it could be worse because now they get to go on the road to face the Broncos. Is there any universe where you're considering Jake Browning after what we saw?
No way. Look, I don't think the Broncos defense is as good as the Vikings defense, as crazy as that sounds. But Jake Browning on the road in Denver, no thank you.
Hard no. Definitely a hard no for any tight ends there that you shouldn't even have to think about. All right, now what about the Denver side here? Got Bo Nix. Look, I get it. Hasn't been amazing this season, but at least he's shown up. He's been decent. It's a home game. It's the Bengals defense. What do you think?
Man, Bo Nix, he missed 3 or 4 guys for huge gains last week. It could have been a huge game. It should have been a huge game. It is the Bengals here, but I'm a little nervous. Maybe not to the degree of CJ Stroud, but maybe we're kind of seeing that second year, not going to take the leap like we expect every rookie to do, right? We just think they're going to get better in year 2, and it doesn't always happen. But it is a Bengals, so I think he's at least streamable this week. And then I'll say Evan Ingram, even though it is the Bengals, it's a good matchup. If he even plays, way too risky.
Got to see a healthy Ingram out there and involved before I think about him. Look, again, I'm going to trust that the matchup is good enough. I think Nix should be solid. This Bengals offense, yeah, it was horrific last week. Let's not overlook how bad the defense is, right? They gave up a lot of points as well. So, yeah, I think Nix this week, you should feel pretty good about him. All right, that's everything you need to know about quarterback and tight end for week 4. We already got you covered. Running back and wide receiver. Everything you need to win is going to be right here in this playlist.